Thanks for downloading this edition of The Y Factor from the BBC, a programme that seeks to find out why we do the things we do. I hope you enjoy it.
Detective, what are you doing?
He said they've all been programmed with the 3 laws, so that means we have 1,000 robots that will not try to protect themselves if it violates a direct order from a human. And I'm betting one who will. Why do you give them faces? Try to friendly them all up, make them look all human.
These robots are not susceptible to intimidation.
I guess if you didn't, we wouldn't trust them. These things are just lights and clockwork.
Science fiction is filled with malign machines, robots which rise against humanity. Faster than us, stronger than us, perhaps even smarter than us. I'm Mike Williams with The Y Factor. Today, why are we so worried about robots? So many of those dystopian stories have been framed by the 3 laws of robotics devised by the writer Isaac Asimov in the 1940s.
A robot may not harm a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. Number 2, a robot must obey orders given it by qualified personnel unless those orders violate rule number 1. In other words, a robot can't be ordered to kill a human being. Rule number 3, a robot must protect its own existence unless that violates rules 1 or 2. A robot must cheerfully go into self-destruction if it is in order to follow an order or to save a human life.
I just met with folks from some cutting-edge companies and saw some of their inventions here in your National Robotics Engineering Center. But that's not the only reason I'm here. You might not know this, but one of my responsibilities as Commander-in-Chief is to keep an eye on robots. And I'm pleased to report that the robots you manufacture here seem peaceful. At least for now.
Perhaps there's good reason to fear the machines. They work in our factories, hospitals, shops and schools. They're also in the military now. Robots really are on the rise.
We're on the cusp of a robots revolution at the minute. We're not seeing much of them in our society yet because they're still a bit expensive, but we're seeing all the developments that are happening and they're about to rush into our society wholesale.
But the robots are useful in science, medicine and exploration, in space and beneath the seas. So do we have reasons to be so fearful of the rise of the machines?
On the most basic level, we're fascinated with ourselves. If you look at pop culture, you see robots are usually portrayed as human beings. They look like us. And so I think they provide a mirror, a place where we can project our own fears and hopes about humankind. We project them right onto the robots.
Daniel Wilson is a roboticist in the United States, and he's also the author of the best-selling novel Robopocalypse. The word robot came to English early in the 20th century in a play by a Czech writer, Rossum's Universal Robots. In Act 1, they start to take human jobs. Act 2, and the robots revolt. Act 3, and the killing begins.
If you look back at the original coining of the term robot, in that play, robots were exploited workers, and they rose up and they killed every single human being. Not an auspicious start for robots, but you see that they were really there reflecting an issue of the time, which was the exploitation of the working class, and robots provided a really convenient prop for that topic. And I think that throughout history, we've seen robots provide the same kind of prop for whatever issues we're dealing with as people.
We are the robots.
There seems to be a lot of interest in developing robots that people will accept.
Amanda Sharkey teaches computer science at Sheffield University in the north of England. Her husband, Noel Sharkey, is Emeritus Professor of Robotics there too. Both of them are members of the Foundation for Responsible Robotics.
There is a developing understanding of how to make the robot appear to understand you. So getting it to look you in the eye, to provide the right emotional expression, to give the right gestures and so on. So it could create the illusion that it's capable of more than it actually is.
It could be anything from the myth of Pygmalion, where he took a statue and turned it into a human by praying to the gods. Well, magic nowadays is science, so you're recreating a human. But I don't understand it myself because there are a lot of robots around and very, very few of them are human-like.
And to prove the point, Noel and Amanda introduced me to Paro. What's this?
This is Paro robotic seal.
Robotic seal.
Yes. Shall I turn it on?
Yeah. It's about a half a metre long and white and fluffy. Oh. Oh, I really don't like that. Yeah, so it's just kind of opening its eyes now, wide.
So it kind of calls out for attention. This is particularly designed to work for use with old people with dementia. It has touch sensors, so it sort of responds to how it's being stroked. Calls out for attention, so it seems quite needy. And I think it's quite calming to sit there and stroke it.
Do you think so? It looks... I find it very, very disconcerting, to be honest.
I think you really need to take it in your arms if you can possibly do that.
Okay. Oh, dear me.
And have a look into its eyes.
Well, that's the thing that scares me most, its eyes, actually. Oh, and his head's waggling from side to side. Oh, dear me.
We have to take it off you again.
It's really, really disconcerting, and I think it's the fact that it's almost there but not quite. I just wish it would stop staring at me, to be honest. Paro is supposed to be soothing. Frankly, I found it creepy with its jerky movements, the whirring sound of the motors inside, and those lifeless eyes. Many robots are designed to look like us or look like things that we can somehow relate to. And studies show that's good, up to a point. And at that point, things get bad and we fall into something called the Uncanny Valley.
The overall idea of making something relatable is a good one, but it's when those features become almost too close for comfort that they become unsettling rather than friendly and welcoming. Some of them go a little bit too close to human.
Stephanie Lay is a psychologist at the UK's Open University. Her doctoral thesis was titled Exploring the Uncanny Valley.
It's a term to describe a dip in emotional response. There is a point at which, rather than liking them more, you start to reject them. So if you imagine a typical factory robot, it might have arms for moving car parts around, but you don't really think of it as a person. If you then humanise that by making it more bipedal, more friendly, giving it eventually a face and hair and smiling eyes, you would expect that your liking for it would just continue to increase, but it actually doesn't. There's a point at which your emotional response dips off sharply, and rather than it being appealing, you really don't like it, you want it to go away. And it's that dip in response that is the Uncanny Valley.
And what causes it, do you know?
In the very early days, there was almost a psychoanalytic perspective that we didn't like things that were too close to us because it felt like they were going to steal our humanity or replace us in some way. There was also a theory that because these were creatures that were not quite animated in the way that a human would be, it reminded us of our own mortality.
All of that machinery that's in our brains that helps us understand what's going on inside the minds of other human beings, we apply that to everything we interact with, especially very lifelike robots. And when you look at that face and your brain tells you, I don't know what's going on inside that machine, I don't know what it's thinking, as a corollary of that, we're also very good at detecting when something's wrong with someone else, if they maybe have a disease or if they're hurt in some way. And so if you think about these robots and you think about how close they are to being human, but maybe they don't breathe, or maybe the skin in their face is rigid, or their eyes aren't moving, you realize, well, these are all attributes that corpses have. You know, a corpse looks a lot like a person, only it's not breathing, the skin temperature is wrong, the color might be slightly off. So it's no surprise, I think, that our brains tell us to run away whenever we see a walking corpse.
A lot of the fear of robots comes from the mystery, and the mystery is that if I can't tell how the robot does a thing, then I can't tell which things are hard and which things are easy for robots.
Michael Kalish is Professor of Psychology at Syracuse University in the US. He uses robots to help teach his students how the human mind works by getting them to look at the processes going on in the circuitry of the robots and in the algorithms that drive them. Because, he says, it's not knowing why the robots do the things they do that gives people cause for concern.
When the robot behaves in a way that I can't understand, I don't know where to go. And so I'm frightened of that robot. I think just like I might be frightened of my car if it started misbehaving. That's the fear of modern technology. We should be frightened of something that acts in an unpredictable way and is potentially dangerous. And the robot mind is, in a way, unpredictable to people because robots don't act for reasons like people do. Robots behave like intelligent machines do.
The Japanese have a word, sonsaikan, which translates roughly as human presence, and researchers there are trying to imbue their robots with more and more sonsaikan. Chihira Aiko is a receptionist at a department store in Tokyo. It's also a robot, and one which stands squarely at the bottom of the Uncanny Valley, that dip in the graph of our comfort levels as the machines become almost, but not quite, indistinguishable from humans.
She is extremely human-like. She dresses in a traditional kimono, she has hair and makeup in a traditional style, and she's much more unsettling because you can see her as an individual and a person. That one, I feel, still triggers the effect because you see it as a person, but it isn't behaving in the way that you would quite expect. The voice is still very scripted, and her gestures, there's only a few that she makes and they're very repetitive, so that immediately breaks the idea that you're seeing a person, even though her appearance suggests it.
You keep saying the word she, not it.
I do, yes, I've fallen into that trap.
My name is Hirotaka Osawa, and I'm an assistant professor of the University of Tsukuba. And I'm now working about the study about the human and robot interaction. We don't have taboos about creating robots, but the Western culture may have some kind of taboo to creating the human-like things. And this is a cultural difference.
There are crucial differences between the two cultures and their views on robots and artificial life. And one of those differences can be found in religion.
I estimate that in Japan, there is some kind of religion about the Buddhism and Shintoism. And these religions doesn't prohibit to making a human-like robots. Especially in the Shintoism, every kind of environment, like the suns or the moons or the forests, have the spirits on it. And also there's some kind of machines has a spirit on it. This kind of notion will help us to creating the more human-like artificial things.
So an inanimate object like a rock or a robot can have some kind of spirit in Shintoism?
Yeah, and there is no taboo about accepting things like that. And also, there's some kind of the fictions calling the Astro Boy becoming a comic.
Dad, don't be discouraged.
I've been so close, but I just can't make a robot like a human.
Dad, I've been thinking. Why don't you make a boy robot?
And several robotic fictions influences robotic researchers to making more friendly robots.
The dystopian film Blade Runner came out of a science fiction novel by Philip K. Dick. The title was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
It's that not quite knowing what's going on in the electronic brain of a robot that adds to our discomfort. Could they ever have intelligence like ours? Could they ever dream or imagine?
If a thing has imagination, then it's not a robot. So I don't think it'll ever be possible for a robot to have imagination. But do I think it'll be possible for an artificial system, a system which is built rather than born, to have imagination? Then I would say yes. And the distinction there is that if we do a good enough job understanding how intelligent creatures work, there's no reason why we can't assemble a new one rather than giving birth to one. That said, I'm not holding my breath.
But if it did happen, would it be a day you'd like to see?
Sure, in part because I would really like to know what it is that the human brain does. How does it work? And the day we have a robot that's indistinguishable from a natural intelligence, that would be evidence that we've learned a lot something really, really important, much harder than anything we've ever learned before. So I think it would be an amazing thing to see.
There are a lot of really brilliant people out there who have raised an alarm bell saying, watch out, we've got to do something now. But if you go out and you ask researchers who build robots, who create the algorithms that run robots, none of them are afraid. That to me seems interesting. I think on the micro level, we need to definitely worry about how autonomous tools are going to behave and how they can go wrong. On the macro level, I do not see any reason to fear the notion that a super intelligent AI is going to marshal all of the robots in the world together and attack us. Although it's a very convenient plot for a thrilling novel.
So does sci-fi writer Daniel Wilson think this means that the opportunity to scare ourselves silly with ever more dystopian versions of our robot future is limitless?
As long as technology keeps progressing, we will have stories of robot uprisings. And I think part of that is just human vanity. It used to be that we could define what a human being was by all the amazing things we could do that no other animal or creature or anything, or even humans throughout history have ever been able to do. We are so special, and then you build a robot that can paint a painting or guide an orchestra or drive a car. And every time there's this technological progress, it shrinks our definition of what it means to be human and what makes us special. And it's threatening. If you think about technology, it's really intertwined with humankind. We can't survive without technology. And yet, the more powerful it gets, the greater our capability is to destroy ourselves. And so as technology progresses and the stakes are rising, we see the robots again stepping in to play this role of technology. And in some cases, I think it's kind of nice to be able to, in a movie, just shoot the robot in the face and walk away from it, having sort of won.
The worry is not so much the robots becoming smarter than us and taking over, it's the use that humans put them to. So you could have quite dumb robots, but put to an unpleasant use. So if they're going to automatically kill people when they've done a certain thing, the robot itself doesn't have to be that smart.
That's the reality of technology. It has the power to do good and it has the power to do evil. And where we end up on that is really a question of how much we trust humanity.
What do you think is more frightening, a robot or a human?
There's nothing more frightening than a human being.
Thanks for listening to The Y Factor. If you'd like to hear more episodes, there's a wide range of programmes on our website. From pleasure to addiction, from the weirdness of water to our search for the secrets at the heart of the atom. Visit bbcworldservice.com/Y Factor.